Hello and welcome back. Today we have another round of interview with David Pattinson. Hi David.
Hi, nice to see you.
Likewise. So for today we are going to talk more about your experience. We're going to focus on you. I hope that this is all right with you. Yeah. And I look forward finding some answers about your experience in trials and your experience with false allegations. Now I'm going to start asking you if you have any advice for men who have been accused of sexual assault or are waiting a trial right now.
Yeah, I've got some ideas. I want to clarify that I'm not a lawyer. I don't offer legal advice. I encourage anyone that's been falsely accused to get a lawyer. I'm happy to talk about my case. I was falsely accused. I had a trial. I was totally exonerated. And I'm happy to talk about the things on reflection that I thought I did well, the things that I thought I could have done better in hindsight, or if I went through it again, that I would do differently. But I don't want to give legal advice to other people because I'm not a lawyer.
All right, so let's start with the beginning. What happened?
Okay, so I was I was doing a job interview for a young woman. I have a beauty business where most of the staff are women. And we met in a bar in London. We had a conversation. We went to another bar. We went to a third bar. And then she went home, I went home. We parted company, and that was it. I've never spoken to her since that time. She told me during this conversation that she was moving out of the area. So there was no way she could work for my firm because she was moving out of the area imminently. And it just wasn't a fit. And we had a nice social conversation. We had a few drinks, and then that was it. She went home, I went home, and there was no correspondence after that point. I didn't follow up with her because she told me she was leaving the area. Anyway, about a month later, she went to the police and said she'd been assaulted by me. And, I was contacted by the police. I went to see them. They asked me to come voluntarily to do an interview with the police, which I did. And
that was a month later?
She made the accusation a month later after the incident. Well, after the meeting, there was no incident. And I went to see the police about 3 weeks after that. So by the time I met with the police, it was about 7 weeks after we'd had this evening of drinks, which lasted 3 hours approximately. And then I was charged, and I had to go to court, and I had to go to court and I had to win. That's what I did.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't as easy as you just...
As you said, it wasn't. No, I mean, I'm someone that it kind of enjoys this sort of intellectual combat. To take on the Crown Prosecution Service, it was something I found fun. Like I've said before, I never expected to be convicted. Number one, because I have no criminal record of any kind. And number two, because I had not committed a criminal offence in this instance. What I learned through the process was the Crown Prosecution Service had a policy that all accusers must be believed. That's why this girl was believed over me. And, all cases like this have to go to trial. The men are presumed guilty until proven innocent. I think looking back, doing that meeting at the police station was probably the biggest mistake I made. I do not think I should have done that because I was going to be charged anyway. Anything I said at that police interview was just going to be picked apart and they were going to try and use it against me. These he said, she said cases are an issue of credibility. Who's the most credible? Is David a credible guy or is the false accuser a credible woman? And if you do a long police interview like I did, it lasted about an hour, they then type up the transcript and then they kind of ask you about it in court and they ask you questions about, what you did. And then they say, well, in your police interview, you said these, and these are just minor things. You could say, I arrived just before 8. And they said, well, in your police interview, you said you arrived at like 7:45. So they're picking apart small things to create a case that you're a dishonest person. And I'm not a dishonest person. I'm a totally, straightforward, play with a straight bat kind of person. But if you do a police interview, in my opinion, it's going to work against you. Normally you would say, yeah, do the police interview because you can tell the police, you can show the police you're not a bad guy, you're just a straightforward guy. You can tell them that you're never in trouble with the law, all this sort of stuff, and they would say, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. There's nothing going here. But if the police have a policy, or the Crown Prosecution do, that all accusers must be believed, which was the Alison Saunders policy, then what's the point in going to the police? You're going to be charged anyway. Now, obviously, Alison Saunders leaving, people say, oh, well, that policy's not in place anymore. I don't know if that's the truth or not, but in my case, looking back, I regret doing that police. It's just a waste of my time.
So should men just remain silent and not answer?
Silent. Yeah, you have the right to remain silent. Just remain silent, wait for the charge, go to court and defend yourself.
But if you're not guilty and you have nothing to hide?
Yeah, so if you're not guilty, nothing to hide, you're only going to hurt yourself by going to the police. The police are not going to believe your story and say, okay, we won't charge you. They're going to charge you anyway, in my opinion. So just wait to go to court, you have your day in court, you prepare your legal defense. During the process, so after you do your plea, you go to court, you do your plea, I plead not guilty. There's this process called discovery. Now, during the Alison, that's where the prosecution have to show all the evidence they have against you. They have to show if there's CCTV footage. They have to show if there's, I don't know, DNA evidence or whatever it is. It's in this discovery period. It's after the plea, assuming you plead not guilty, but it's pre-trial. And it's enough time before the trial so that the accused can prepare a defense. They can say, okay, these are all the evidence against me. This is my defense to rebut this evidence. Under Alison Saunders, discovery was nicknamed suppression because it was not what the evidence they had against you, it was the evidence they were suppressing that cleared you. So if there was CCTV, like in my case, that showed me, being friendly, having a friendly discussion, that was deleted, that was kept out of the trial. Whereas if there's evidence that CCTV that shows you, behaving in a sort of a bad way or a not good way, that would be included. That's what I mean. It's not a full picture of the evidence, it's cherry-picked evidence. If there was a text message to say, I don't like you, I'm going home now, the I'm going home now would be deleted, and the only text message that would be there would be the I don't like you part. So it's manipulated, so it's getting a collection of the evidence, it's manipulating it to make it seem much worse than it is. Also, what Alison Saunders would do would only release evidence like right before trial or on the day of the trial. So the accused doesn't have enough time to review the evidence to defend themselves. It's just there as soon as they appear in court, and they were not informed about it before. So that was what happened in my case. There was 3 hours of CCTV, but only 30 minutes was able to be played in the court because the police had deleted the rest of it. And then a lot of the discussion was about what was happening off camera. And I kept saying, why don't we just watch the whole video? We'll see what's going on. But they said, no, we don't want to show that.
All right, so they did not show the whole video. They just showed fragments.
They showed 30 minutes. They didn't even do that. They had 30 minutes. They disclosed 30 minutes to us. When they showed it in court, it was broken down into small 5-second segments or 10-second segments, which was fine. But the CCTV from the other 2 venues, because we went to 3 venues, that was kept out of court. And a lot of the discussion was about what was going on in these other 2 venues. Was I being an unpleasant person? Was I being a not nice guy? Was I abusing other people in the bars? And this girl was saying, yes, I was. I was saying, no, I wasn't. But the CCTV evidence to show that I wasn't, they'd vanished.
Mm-hmm. So if someone is being accused, what can he do?
So in my opinion, so I don't want to give legal advice, but looking back, what I would have done is really made sure that I'd have gone straight to the venues and got all the CCTV footage myself. It was difficult for me because the accusation came in, weeks, and it was really 7 weeks or almost 2 months later before I was notified of it. So in some venues, the CCTV footage has been deleted at that point by the venue. But anything you can do to preserve, or anything I should have done, or to some extent I did. I couldn't get hold of this CCTV. I didn't even try. I just assumed the police would have it and would disclose it, which they didn't do. So in hindsight, I wish I'd have gone to the venues and got all of it to play in court. And also, I did have a text message from this girl to say I was running a few minutes late, or I sent it to her. I did save that. That was something I thought I did well. We were able to build a timeline in court of exactly when we met, exactly when we parted company. It was time-stamped on my phone, and I was glad that I kept that. And I also had an email to her setting up the meeting, which I showed in court. And that differed from her statement to police. She had a statement to police that was very sort of vague in detail and heavy in emotion. And I think the jury thought, liked the fact that I was really able to home in on the timestamp. Another problem on the video they did show, the time was wrong on there. The police admitted it was wrong. I don't know if they deliberately changed it, but it might have been involved because there was a time change in the, in the year we changed the clocks in Great Britain. So it actually showed 1 hour earlier than it really was. But the police admitted that was an error. They probably knew it beforehand though.
How do you choose the right lawyer?
That's a good question. What I did was I chose a lawyer that I knew, somewhere that I've known a long time. I think some advice I would give, that I can give to men, is in your personal network, have someone you know who is a lawyer, who can give you legal advice to come to your defense. Because any guy can be accused at any moment. The police are going to believe the accuser, you're going to go to court, and you're going to potentially face criminal penalties that are serious. So you've got to have a lawyer, you've got to have a good lawyer. You've got to, something I did well, something I do naturally, is I manage the lawyer. The lawyer's working for me, I manage them. I set the objectives, my objective is to win. Some people, I think, in these situations, they do what I call play not to lose. They say, okay, well, winning's tough, but let's try and limit the damage. I don't do that. I'm trying to win. I'm trying to run up the score. My lawyer told me that something I did wrong was, make so many feminist jokes in the courtroom. But I wanted to, highlight this kind of what I call the corrupt system, how men are disadvantaged in this sort of process. And I think I was glad I did that. I think the jury understood. They relate to what I was saying. They said, yeah, this is crazy. This guy's been accused. There's nothing on the CCTV that shows any criminal behavior. There's no evidence of any criminal intent beyond this girl. And I think they felt that I was unjustly treated just by being there, and that's maybe a reason because I won. My lawyer's strategy was, David, just keep this really simple. It's just, there's no evidence really in a visual sense against you, so the less you say, the less damage you can do to yourself. I said, no, I'm here to run up the score, I'm here to win and win big, and then I'm going to go ahead and try and prosecute Alison Saunders, which is what I'm doing with the citizens prosecution. So I want to win in a big way. Other people maybe want to not lose in a big way. So that's just a difference in style.
If you end up in court, should you talk? Should you?
I think you should, yes. I think I should have. What other people do is up to them. You have a choice in court. Do you want to speak? Do you want to be cross-examined by both your lawyer and the Crown Prosecution lawyer? I said absolutely yes, that's what I want to do. I'm glad I did that. I was able to really hammer the Crown Prosecution lawyer on how corrupt they are as an organisation, in my opinion. And they didn't really have any defence. I hammered all these crazy cases, rape trials that were collapsing in the country at the time. What helped me was Alison Saunders was fired the week before my trial. So I was able to highlight that. I said, look, the head of your organisation has just been fired for corruption. So I think the jury really thought that, there was a miscarriage of justice going on here. What other people say in court is really up to them, but you have to stand your ground. The men, if you've been genuinely falsely accused, then the men there's an injustice on the men. It's not the injustice on the false accuser, which is the way the court portray it. The woman is sort of hidden by a curtain, and there's lots of people around with tissues in case she cries and all this sort of stuff. Whereas the guy's in the dock, kind of at the back, there's like police security all around him, as if he's about to come out and stab someone. So from a visual point of view, it's a sort of a fait accompli.
If you're offered a plea deal, shall you accept it?
In my opinion, I would never, ever, ever accept a plea deal. What other people do is up to them. I think plea deals, the reason we have plea deals is because we have so many soft, petty criminal charges, we don't have a court system that's big enough to let everyone have their day in court. So in order for the justice system to run properly, we need people to be pleading guilty just to get them out of the system. I think people that plead guilty invite charges on men, future men coming down the road. So if I were to have accepted a plea deal, some guy would have been charged, a month later or a year later, because like statistically, it's like, okay, if we get 100 cases, X number will plead guilty. So you're doing the government's work for them. If you're genuinely not guilty, no way should you accept a plea deal. But they make it very difficult. They say, okay, if you plead guilty, you pay a nominal fine. If you don't plead guilty, you risk life in prison. So most people just say, okay, well, I'll just plead guilty to the lesser charge. So I think plea deals are totally ridiculous. I think they're unjust. I think we should scrap them.
Yeah, however, these situations, they are very, you're very stressed when you're in this situation. Well, how can you think clearly?
Well, yeah, a good question. Going back to the previous question on the plea deals, they stack the charges. So the Crown Prosecution aren't judged on how many convictions they get out of how many charges you have. You could have 20 charges and be convicted on one. So CPS have lost on 19, but they're never held accountable for that. So it's really just any convictions they want. So if you're a shoplifter, yeah, we'll accuse you of shoplifting, and then we'll accuse you of murder down the street. And you say, well, it's nothing to do with me, I was in the shop, but I never went down the street. And so you're kind of it's these stacked charges, which is why I think it's wrong. But, your other question about the stress of the situation, no, in my case, I didn't feel that because there was really no criminal penalty that was going to affect me in any way in this case, I didn't think. I just was 100% sure I would win. There was just really no way that they were going to get 12 people to say, yes, David's a criminal based on pretty much zero evidence.
So you had no moment of doubt that she might win?
I never had any moment of doubt that I would get 12 people saying I was guilty. No, I never. It was either going to be a complete acquittal or it was going to be a hung jury, and then we'd do another trial, and then I would, either just keep doing more trials or just win, But I think that the whole premise of my case against me was that I would plead guilty. It was like, David, just plead guilty to this common assault, pay the £80 fine, we'll let you go. You don't have to take any risk of further charges. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to pay legal fees. You can just walk away from this. And I said, no. I said, I'm not going to plead guilty to something I haven't done. I'm going to fight it. I'm going to clear my name. And that's exactly what I did. And of course, when I pulled the rug out from under the Crown Prosecution Service, they had no backup plan. It was just like, okay, well, now we can't win. So the whole trial was kind of a farce.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you something about the evidence. How relevant are the circumstantial evidence, such as witnesses, mail, texts?
So that's a really good question. Related to my case, this girl had put in her police statement 2 witnesses. She said 2 witnesses who were friends of hers had seen me behaving abusively towards her, towards them, towards other people. But yet the police made no attempt to contact these witnesses to verify that before they charged me. After they charged me, I'd said to my lawyer, we need these witnesses found, we need them in court so we can cross-examine them. And the police and this false accuser were very reluctant to provide these witnesses or to tell us who they were. This girl had just said they were friends of hers. So I battled as hard as I could. We got one of the witnesses in court. She was a total basket case. And, I think, again, that helped me. the false accuser had just used these witnesses to say, oh, not only do I think David's a criminal, but these other sort of vague people do as well. But of course, when you get the people in the flesh, put them on the stand, they can't hold up to scrutiny, and it just helps you all the more. So something I was glad I did was get these witnesses, which were meant to be witnesses going to be speaking against me. And it was me that wanted them in court to do that, because I knew they were just made up people. They were phony people.
You mentioned something about clearing your name. Do you think this is possible for you to fully clear your name after you've been accused?
I think it's hard. Yeah, I think it is hard, because the perception in society is there's no smoke without fire. This guy's been charged, and that's the impression they want to create. But all my friends and family, they know me. They've known me for years and years and years. They know I'm a totally credible guy. Reason I'm speaking out about all this stuff, doing these interviews, is because this is the situation. It's bad PR for the guy. The guy's named. The false accuser is not named, and there's legal penalties for naming the false accuser. You cannot sue the false accuser for defamation, because I've tried in my case. And, they're totally protected by the system. It's not an equal system. Either both should be named or neither should be named. And, the only time there should be a naming is if there's a conviction, which, of course, in my case, there was not.
And do you think the prosecutions are more fair now?
I don't know, Alexandrina. The press and the new head of Crown Prosecution are trying to give the impression that, what happened in the past is all in the past. Now we're going to do things the right way. But unless you prosecute Alison Saunders, unless you put her in jail, how do we know as a society? I can tell you full well, once Alison Saunders is prosecuted, memos will go out to all the police forces in Great Britain to say, do not, whatever you do, manipulate evidence, falsify evidence, cherry pick evidence, because we don't want to end up like Alison Saunders. But rather, it's not that case, is it? Alison Saunders gets off with a £1 million payoff. She gets, debated about for damehood. When she's as big a criminal as anyone in the UK. So until she's prosecuted with the citizens' prosecution, I have large doubts that men are going to be treated fairly in these cases, or at least as, on an equal footing with the accuser, whether genuine or false.
What else have you, what steps have you done correctly in court?
I think a step I've done subsequently is pushing back along the system. Most guys, I think, would just say, okay, I was cleared, I'm just going to go back to my life. I'm not doing that. I'm trying to prosecute the top prosecutor in the UK. I'm building a coalition of falsely accused men. I'm reaching out to people right across the country who believe in fair justice, and get a lot of support, and getting emails and calls daily, with more and more supporters. So, I'm happy about that. I think what else I did well was, having confidence in the fact that I'm able to interact with women. I'm able to, I can talk any way I want to talk. And it's like I've said to you before, if people don't like me, they don't have to interact with me. They don't have to do business with my company. They can give social ramifications. This girl obviously didn't like me because I didn't give her the job. I didn't follow up with her afterwards. She doesn't have to interact with me again. But it's not a criminal offence. And we had to waste £35,000 of taxpayer money to try and prosecute me, and it's just absolute waste. British taxpayers need that money reimbursed either by the false accuser or by the Crown Prosecution system, and there's no way they're going to get it. Alison Saunders was constantly complaining about how she didn't have enough resources. She goes and wastes, 20 million on Operation Elvedon, trying to prosecute 29 journalists, none of which were convicted. And then she goes to the public and says, I don't have enough money to do my job. If you're not wasting so much money on malicious prosecutions, you may have more money to do your job.
And what about the mistakes that some men might do in court?
I think in my case, I made the mistake of talking to the police. I would not do that again. I think the mistakes other men make is that they sort of try and apologize for being men, for trying to pursue masculine or male behaviors, to try and chat up women, to try and flirt with women, to try and seduce women. They get into the court puts this to them, saying, look, you know, most of the public don't think this is the right behavior, and they sort of say, yeah, no, I would never do that. I would never chat up an attractive, beautiful woman if she was sitting next to me at a bar. You know, that's ridiculous. You know, of course guys are going to want to do that. If they're not married, they're, you know, totally free to do that, in my opinion. And I don't think they should be ashamed about doing that. So I think that's a mistake men make. They succumb to the shaming tactics of the prosecution, and they should say no. You know, if these are guys that are, you know, like we talked about the sports players, if they like going out chatting up women at the bar, they should say that, you know. It gives credibility it gives authenticity to who they are.
And what should you do if you're cleared?
Well, I think if you're cleared, like I've said, you should fight back against the system. You should sue everyone you possibly can. And, you know, you can sue the police if they've manipulated evidence against you, if there's a miscarriage of justice. I think people should join the Citizens' Prosecution to prosecute Alison Saunders. It will kill all this stuff dead in its tracks. I think people need to take very, very serious action against these miscarriages of justice, because we want to get gender relations back on an even footing in the country. We want men to feel confident to pursue women for romantic relationships or long-term relationships, because that's a benefit to men and women, and it's a benefit for children. If men feel that the legal risk is too great to chat to women, I mean, I could go down to a bar this evening and meet a woman there, but I don't know if she's a false accuser or not. She might be. So that would disincentivize me from doing so. It'd probably disincentivize other guys as well. So we end up with a society where men don't want to talk to women, women don't get any attention or resource allocation from men, and you know, what's the point, you know? And it's all created through this sort of fear that's perpetuated by these miscarriages of justice, yeah.
Well, I'm really sorry that you had to pass through this experience. However, I'm very grateful for the information you provided us, and I hope men watching you will find valuable advice and information.
Okay, well, thank you very much.